So there's a hierarchy of concern that the Daily Mail is currently operating right now, and it reveals one of the most disingenuous things that I've seen from that publication in a long time. So what do I mean? So there are people who bought tickets to the Her Best Life retreat in Sydney, and they bought the tickets with the stated intention of infiltrating the event using hidden recording devices, including meta glasses. And there are people who have publicly posted that they've hatched plans with friends to gain entry under false pretenses, and they signed off their post saying, "Good luck figuring out who it is." I'm not going to mention their name, and do not mention their name under my post. I will block you, because I'm not giving that person more eyes on their filth. And they also said that they will be sitting in the front row and they will be heckling. So imagine spending about $3,000 on a VIP ticket just to do that. That is the level of unhinged and crazy that I haven't seen in a long time. And there's a reason I'm going over this, so I'm setting the scene. And these are people whose threats were specific enough and credible enough that Meghan's security operation, as well as the Sydney police, decided to boost the security around her, because these are real people, these are real threats, and these are real consequences for the safety of over 300 women attending a private wellness event. And the Daily Mail decided that their concern about all of this is a photograph. And apparently there's a possibility that Meghan might be photographed standing next to a woman on X who does not believe that the other girl's cancer is genuine. Now, they're not concerned about a woman who is threatening to infiltrate an event, not a woman who discussed using hidden recording equipment and who has made it their job to harass and defame Meghan.
Here's something that's been absolutely eating at me, and I need to talk about it because the hypocrisy is so blatant, it's actually staggering. The Daily Mail, and honestly, I've been watching this publication for years, has created this incredibly revealing hierarchy of what they deem concerning versus what they'll conveniently ignore. And let me tell you, it says everything you need to know about their agenda, and absolutely nothing you should believe about Meghan and Harry. So let's break this down, because the contrast is genuinely shocking when you actually sit down and look at what's happening here. We're talking about a situation where women purchase tickets to Meghan's Her Best Life retreat in Sydney. We're talking about tickets that cost approximately $3,000 for VIP access, right? And their stated intention was to infiltrate the event with hidden recording devices, including meta glasses. These aren't hypothetical concerns. These are real people who publicly posted about their plans to gain entry under false pretenses. They literally signed off their post saying, "Good luck figuring out who it is." These are people who announced they'd be sitting in the front row, heckling. We're talking about a level of premeditated harassment that is genuinely unhinged. The threats were specific enough, credible enough, that Meghan's security team and the Sydney Police Department actually boosted security around the entire event, because these aren't just keyboard warriors. These are tangible threats to the safety of over 300 women attending a private wellness retreat. Now, here's where it gets absolutely wild. The Daily Mail's response, their big concern, their pressing issue that merited multiple articles, a potential photograph. They were worried, genuinely concerned enough to publish articles, that Meghan might be photographed standing next to a woman on X who doesn't believe Kate's health narrative. That's their priority, not the women threatening to infiltrate events with hidden cameras. not the women whose entire existence seems dedicated to harassing and defaming Meghan. No, their concern is a Sussex supporter who refused to be intimidated. And you know what's really revealing? This supporter, who is one of the most articulate and passionate advocates for Meghan, actually treated these articles as a badge of honour. Because instead of cowering, instead of disappearing, she recognised that the Daily Mail's obsession with her only proves her point. So the Mail decided to write another article, this time framing it as "How embarrassing for Meghan if she's photographed with this kind of supporter." The implication being that there's something wrong with supporting Meghan authentically and openly. But here's where this becomes absolutely indefensible, and this is what I really want you to understand. Kate has been photographed repeatedly with her most prolific trolls, and I mean the women who have made it their literal mission to write the most vicious, abusive, dehumanizing things about Meghan. Some of these women have even been invited to Kate's Christmas concert, and they brag about it openly. They post about it. They show the receipts. Oh my God, I got an invite to the concert. Best day of my life. I took a photo with Kate. And somehow Kate's team seems to have absolutely no trouble identifying who these people are in a crowd. Think about that for a second. There was an outing, and I remember this distinctly, where Kate was greeting people lined up on the street, and she made a beeline for a specific woman. Everyone assumed it was random, just natural crowd interaction. Except this particular woman is one of the most prolific abusers of Meghan online, one of the most relentless. And what people noticed was telling. There was a woman in a wheelchair on the other side of that specific person, and Kate didn't even acknowledge her. No wave, no hello, no basic human acknowledgement. She went straight to the troll, took the photo, and moved on. Let me be absolutely clear about what's happening here. Someone is directly identifying Meghan's most vicious attackers, and Kate's team is rewarding them with photo opportunities and event invitations. And the Daily Mail? Their response to this? Silence. Complete silence. But let Meghan potentially be seen with a supporter who simply doesn't believe Kate's narrative, and suddenly it's a crisis requiring multiple think pieces. The language the Daily Mail used is incredibly revealing, by the way. They described Meghan's supporter as one of the most vituperative influencers in the so-called Sussex Squad. They called her an anonymous troll. They said a photograph would represent a glaring reputational risk for Meghan given her repeated calls for compassion and accuracy in online discourse. And I want you to really sit with that last part because it's absolutely audacious. Meghan calls for compassion. Meghan calls for accuracy. And the Daily Mail, a publication that's been found guilty in court of publishing false and damaging content about her, is lecturing about her reputation. They ran stories about her father's letter. They published body language analysis filled with speculation and bias. They've been systematically hostile to her. But somehow they're concerned about her reputation. It's almost comically dishonest. And there's another phrase they use that I want to highlight because it's incredibly revealing about their framing. They said Meghan is seen by the squad as a flawless, persecuted heroine. Notice what they're doing with that language. They're taking the documented reality of sustained, coordinated abuse that's been led by institutions and the press, and they're reframing it as if the supporters are deluded for recognizing that abuse. It's this subtle, rhetorical move that suggests supporters are foolish for seeing what's actually happening. But here's the truth. We see Meghan as someone who did absolutely nothing to deserve the treatment she's received. The abuse has been relentless. it's been coordinated, and it's been institutional. So yes, her supporters are loyal. Yes, they're vocal. And the Daily Mail's problem with that seems to be that we're willing to say openly what we believe, while they expect us to be ashamed of it. The double standard is so blatant that I honestly can't understand how they continue to operate with any credibility at all. You have women threatening to infiltrate private events with recording devices, actual security threats, and the Mail is silent. You have women receiving invitations to events and photo opportunities with Kate specifically because of their abuse of Meghan, and the Mail is silent. But one Sussex supporter, one woman who has the courage to be vocal and visible in her support, that warrants articles, that warrants concern, that warrants being labelled a troll. This is the hierarchy they're operating on, and it tells you everything you need to know about where their allegiances lie and what their actual agenda is. And I think people need to wake up to this. I think people need to understand that the media landscape is more manipulated than most people realise. And the pattern of coverage around Meghan and Harry is a case study in institutional bias. So if you're watching this and you're still getting your information about Meghan and Harry from outlets like the Daily Mail, I genuinely encourage you to start questioning what you're being told and why you're being told it. Because the double standard on display here is not subtle and it's not accidental. It's systematic. And people deserve better. Let's talk about what really matters here, because there's a hierarchy of concern that the Daily Mail is operating under, and it's absolutely revealing in the most disingenuous way possible. So, picture this. You've got real, documented security threats at Meghan's Her Best Life retreat in Sydney. And I mean actual credible threats that required police involvement and heightened security measures. We're talking about people who purchased tickets with the explicit intention of infiltrating the event using hidden recording devices, including meta-glasses. People who publicly posted about gaining entry under false pretenses and boasted about sitting in the front row to heckle. People who were so dedicated to causing disruption that they spent roughly $3,000 on a VIP ticket just to carry out their plan. These weren't vague concerns or theoretical possibilities. These were specific, credible threats that warranted real security responses, affecting the safety of over 300 women attending a private wellness event. But here's where it gets interesting, where the hypocrisy becomes so glaring that it's impossible to ignore. The Daily Mail's primary concern wasn't any of that. Their concern wasn't the actual infiltration plans, wasn't the hidden recording devices, wasn't the coordinated harassment campaign, wasn't the safety of the attendees. No, their concern was a photograph. Their concern was the possibility that Meghan might be photographed standing next to one of her supporters. A woman on X who apparently doesn't believe in someone else's medical condition, and suddenly this becomes the reputational crisis that warrants multiple articles. But wait, there's more to this story that really exposes the game being played. Because while the Daily Mail is writing article after article about a potential photo with a supporter, they're completely silent about the documented threats, the infiltration plans, the heckling campaigns, all of which pose genuine danger to real people. And here's the kicker that makes this whole thing even more sinister. Kate has been photographed with Meghan's most prolific trolls, women who have dedicated their lives to writing the most heinous and abusive content about Meghan, yet the Daily Mail seems perfectly fine with that. These women have been invited to events, they've posed for photos, they've bragged about their access online, showing evidence of their invites and their moments with Kate. And somehow either Kate's team or Kate herself manages to identify these people in crowds, making deliberate choices to photograph with known abusers while ignoring others. The selective concern, the manufactured outrage, the complete reversal of standards depending on which royal is involved, it all points to something much deeper than simple journalism. It points to a coordinated effort to protect one narrative while attacking another, to shield certain relationships while weaponizing others, and to use the press as a tool for something far more calculated than reporting the truth. What we're witnessing here is nothing short of a coordinated public relations operation that would make any spin doctor blush with shame. And it's high time someone laid out the evidence in stark, undeniable terms. Let's talk about the elephant in the room that the mainstream media, particularly that bastion of journalistic integrity, the Daily Mail, seems absolutely desperate to ignore, or more accurately, actively participate in protecting. Because here's the thing that should make every single one of you sit up and take notice. Kate has developed what can only be described as a pattern, a remarkably consistent pattern, of positioning herself photographically with some of the most prolific, most vicious, most unrelenting abusers and defamers of Meghan Markle. And the Daily Mail doesn't just look the other way. They actively shield these individuals while simultaneously attacking anyone who dares to support Meghan or question this deeply suspicious behaviour. Think about this for a moment. There are women out there, documented, verifiable, with receipts and screenshots for days, who have made it their literal life's mission to harass, defame, and psychologically torment Meghan. These aren't casual critics or people with differing opinions. These are obsessive, methodical operators who spend hours upon hours crafting narratives designed to destroy Meghan's reputation. And yet, somehow, mysteriously, Kate's team manages to identify these exact individuals in crowds, seeks them out, and positions herself directly beside them for carefully orchestrated photographs that are then distributed across social media platforms. The coordination here is so blatant, so obvious once you start paying attention, that it strains credibility to suggest it's coincidental. When you examine the pattern, and yes, it is absolutely a pattern, you see a woman who appears to be deliberately selecting from among the crowds of supporters and onlookers, bypassing people in wheelchairs, ignoring others trying to get her attention, and making what can only be described as a beeline for individuals who are simultaneously running some of the most toxic, abusive social media accounts dedicated to tearing Meghan apart. And these women, these professional trolls, they're not shy about their invitations or their photographs. They boast about them online. They share evidence. They celebrate being selected because they know exactly what message this sends. That they have been validated, that they have been chosen, that their campaign of abuse and defamation has not gone unnoticed by the very household they're attacking. Now, here's where it gets truly insidious, and this is where the Daily Mail's complicity becomes absolutely undeniable and morally reprehensible. When Meghan's genuine supporters, women and men who have stood by her through the relentless onslaught of racism, misogyny, and coordinated harassment, when these supporters show up at events like the Her Best Life retreat in Sydney, when they buy tickets and attend in good faith, the Daily Mail becomes an attack dog. They write articles describing these supporters as vitrolic influencers and anonymous trolls. They scrutinize every association. They manufacture outrage over theoretical photographs that might hypothetically occur. And they use these opportunities to regurgitate every damaging claim they've ever made or given platform to. But when actual documented abusers, women who have publicly threatened to infiltrate events with hidden recording devices, who have coordinated plans to heckle and disrupt, Women who have made it abundantly clear that their entire purpose is to harm and undermine Meghan. When these women are photographed with Kate, the Daily Mail's concern evaporates entirely. Where are the articles? Where is the manufactured outrage? Where is the pearl clutching about reputational risk and the irony of standing beside known harassers while calling for compassion and accuracy in online discourse? The answer is chilling in its simplicity. The Daily Mail doesn't write about it because the Daily Mail is complicit in it. These are the same outlets that have been found guilty in courts of publishing false and damaging content about Meghan. The same publication that ran the fabricated story about her father's letter. The same media organisation that has commissioned body language analysis to make Meghan appear sinister and duplicitous. They are not neutral arbiters of truth. They are active participants in a coordinated campaign to undermine, delegitimize and destroy Meghan's reputation and credibility. And the photographs, the deliberate, strategic positioning of Kate beside Meghan's most prolific abusers, this serves multiple purposes in that coordinated effort. First, it provides validation and encouragement to these trolls, letting them know that their harassment is noticed and appreciated by the very people they're attacking. Second, it creates a visual narrative that these are Kate's people, that these are the real supporters as opposed to Meghan's defenders, who the Daily Mail paints as deluded and dangerous. Third, and perhaps most disturbingly, it functions as a message to anyone considering supporting Meghan. If you're identified as a Sussex supporter, you will be attacked. Your character will be assassinated, your associations will be scrutinised, and articles will be written about you. But if you abuse Meghan, if you make that your calling, you'll be embraced and photographed and celebrated. The language that the Daily Mail uses in their articles about this is revealing in ways they probably don't intend or understand. They describe Meghan as seen by the Squad as a flawless, persecuted heroine, and they present this as some kind of delusion, some kind of failure of critical thinking on the part of her supporters. But here's what's actually happening. Meghan's supporters aren't claiming she's literally flawless or has never made a mistake. What they're claiming, what the documented evidence supports, is that she has been subjected to sustained, coordinated, institutionalized abuse that has absolutely nothing to do with her actual conduct and everything to do with who she is, where she comes from, and who she married. When you are being attacked by an entire apparatus, when you have a monarchy investigating you, a tabloid press conducting what amounts to psychological warfare against you, when you have social media trolls working in coordinated fashion to spread lies and conspiracy theories about you, and you did absolutely nothing to deserve any of it. When that's your reality, then yes, you're going to look like a persecuted figure to people who actually pay attention to what's happening. The pattern here is impossible to ignore once you start looking for it. And what makes it even more sinister is how the Daily Mail operates as the protective shield for this entire operation. They attack the defenders while protecting the abusers. They manufacture scandals out of hypothetical photographs while ignoring documented harassment and threats. And they do all of this while presenting themselves as guardians of truth and decency. But the truth is being revealed, the pattern is being documented, and no amount of strategic photography or defensive media articles is going to change the fact that we're watching a coordinated effort to undermine and delegitimize one woman while elevating another, all while the institutional apparatus, courts, media, public institutions, does the heavy lifting of legitimizing this campaign. The receipts exist, the evidence is documented, and the people who care enough to pay attention are connecting the dots. This isn't conspiracy thinking. This is pattern recognition based on observable, verifiable facts. And if you're not seeing it yet, I encourage you to start looking.